How to be a solo player in 3 easy steps. Step 1. Act your damn age.
It's important to remember that people your age don't play video games. Doesn't matter how old you are, gaming is always for someone younger than you. So to avoid the embarrassment, never tell anyone about your secret pastime.
Step 2. Embrace your inner introvert.
Face it, getting away from people is one of the main reasons you do this. Gaming is your guilty pleasure and primary means of escape. Why on earth would you actually want to do it with other people? They will make you as miserable as they do in the real world. So screw them.
Step 3. Have a damn job.
Oh yeah, let's not forget that thing called a job. It pays the bills. It facilitates pretty much everything you have or want to do. I mean, somebody has to keep the lights on, and there's no time for long gaming sessions with so-called friends until 2 in the morning. See step 1. That 5 a.m. wake up you have in the morning will hurt bad enough as it is.
So follow these 3 easy steps, and you too will never know what it's like to defeat Crota, Atheon, Oryx, or the Machine God. The important thing is you've maintained your grasp on reality.
Hello, Guardians. With Destiny 2 right around the corner, I've been thinking a lot about all of the time I spent in Destiny 1, largely as a solo player, and how I might approach things differently in Destiny 2. First, I have to say that being a solo player wasn't all that bad. I was still able to do most activities and achieve max light, even if it did take a little longer. A lot longer. A really lot longer. But that's okay. Moreover, while lots of Guardians were bitching about how Destiny had become stale and boring, I was still out there trying to get stuff done. Back in the days before the Taken King April update, I had no idea why people were saying it was boring. I was way too busy running patrols, doing strikes, figuring out how to survive in the Crucible, and trying to get my light level up. So it wasn't all that bad. Now, in full disclosure, I have to say, I really love this game. Frankly, it's become more of a hobby for me than a game. I mean, I play it like it's my part-time job. Now, my guess is that solo players who come into Destiny and don't find it as entertaining as I do, kind of shrug their shoulders and don't really know what it's all about, probably don't stick around or wouldn't stick around the way I did. So with that said, I got to say, there are still things I wish were different. For example, I never really got to do any of the raids. Well, other than King's Fall, but I didn't really finish it. More on that later. So that's one thing I'd like to change going forward in Destiny 2. I know that Bungie is incorporating changes to improve the solo player experience, such as matchmaking for practically everything, and by making it much easier for solo players to join clans with a new in-game function. While I'm excited by those changes, I have to wonder what kind of research Bungie conducted, if any, on solo player behavior, or if they conducted some kind of outreach to see what solo players are thinking. More than likely, my guess is they simply made the common sense assessment that the only content Bungie's providing that a solo player can't really enjoy are those activities with no matchmaking function. So things like Nightfall Strikes, Trials of Osiris, and of course raids. Furthermore, I hope they concluded that what they likely intended as a forcing function to get Guardians to team up didn't really work. Now, for me and my money, all of this, it's really all about the raids. I mean, a player can solo a Nightfall, right? I know I have. Others have. And in theory, you could go into Trials 1v3. Maybe if your gamer tag is Cammy Cakes or True Vanguard, you'd have a chance to survive. And maybe you'd prevail. But beyond that, you can't even start a raid without teammates. So Bungie likely assumed that making these changes in Destiny 2 would more or less resolve the issue and get solo players to stick around. But I wonder if Bungie also asked themselves another question. Specifically, why does Destiny, a game designed to be social, have so many solo players? Who are they? Lacking any kind of research data, I could only assume that solo players range across all demographics. However, if I had to pick a stereotype, my guess is that such a player is probably older, say 40 and up. These kinds of players can only dedicate limited amounts of time to gameplay due to their adult responsibilities, whether that's a responsible day job or raising kids or both. Additionally, and I think this is key, they grew up in a different era. So it's quite likely that a player's age is a central determinant in how they approach the game. Let's use my experience as an example. Now, let me preface this by saying that I've enjoyed video games my whole life. I started playing around age 6 or 7. I own a Magnavox Odyssey. That's right, like one of the first consoles ever produced. Then an Odyssey 200, an Atari 2600, first gen Xbox, a PS3, and now a PS4. Not to mention countless, and I mean countless computer-based games. So I'm no stranger to video gaming. However, and again, key aspect of solo player psychology, I did not grow up in the age of online multiplayer games. I am basically the product of technology. I am by nature a solo player. So Destiny, the Taken King, was my first online multiplayer experience. For most of what we call year 2, because I have a responsible day job, I usually came into the game around 6 or 7 p.m. on weeknights and had to wrap up, well, around 10 p.m. Pushing any later than that, say if I wanted to stay up and complete something that I just felt I needed to complete that night till around 11 or 11:30, the next morning might be kind of rough. So on average, about 3 to 4 hours of gameplay per evening during the week. And then on weekends, I might come into the game a little earlier and maybe I can play till around midnight or as late as I want to, depending on how late I want to wake up the next morning. This remains my gaming pattern to this day. But bear in mind, I'm single. Married folks with kids most assuredly get much less time. So the time they have to play, they need to make it count. Early on in my playing experience with Destiny, I had a few friends in game, as in like real friends, like people I actually know in real life who were also playing Destiny. So occasionally we would team up and do an activity together, but it was never really anything epic. So I toyed with the idea of joining a clan, but didn't really have the time to do the research. And frankly, I'd be more comfortable clanning up with people I actually know. So I asked the question to myself, and I would ask it of you out there in YouTube land, how could Bungie help make these types of players, meaning the 40 and up demographic, more comfortable with reaching out to others online? I think one way to accomplish this might be to have some indication of how old players are. Now, for clans, this is fairly easy, right? I mean, age ranges, I think, are often a criteria for accepting new applicants. You kind of know what you're buying into with a clan, or at least that's the idea. But what if you don't want to clan up? Well, I think displaying ages on individual players will be pretty challenging, as basically the age indicated will only be as accurate as the player wanted it to be, right? I mean, like I could put I'm 12 on there. Who would know, right? Until we started talking on game chat and then you'd figured it out. But how about this? How about a color code? Players could select a color code based upon an age range they are comfortable playing with. So it's like an advertisement to people, right? Like, hey, I'm comfortable with these age ranges. So let's say a colored bar is placed within your emblem, or it's displayed above each player as they run around in the environment, right? So if you're comfortable playing with whatever the base range is for Destiny. I don't know what the lowest age is. So let's just say 6 to 12, your color's white. 12 to 18, your color's green. 18 to 30, your color's blue. 30 and up, sky's the limit, your color's purple. And then if you don't care, if you want to play with like any age, all ages, that color would be gold. And here's another key. If you don't have a color, okay, well, what that represents is a desire to remain completely a solo player. Now, I don't think this needs to be permanent, but if it had to be, for example, like your PS4 gamer tag, you know, Sony, hint, hint, that sucks. If it had to be, it shouldn't be prescriptive. You should be able to play with others across all age groups by matter of choice. Again, all this is just like an advertisement saying, hey, these are the age groups I'm comfortable with. So it's merely a way to vector players towards others who would be more acceptant and have similar playing lifestyles, attitudes, etc. If you're already all clanned up, hey, just put no color. It doesn't matter anymore for you. So could be a good way. So the forthcoming changes that Bungie has made for Destiny 2 are an interesting and welcome step forward. But maybe they could go a little further to improve the player base for time-crunched, grumpy old curmudgeons like me. So what do you think? Are Bungie's new matchmaking changes and the inclusions of clans enough? What would you do to make the solo players more welcome and improve the Destiny experience? Please let me know in the comments below. If you got something out of this, please leave a like. And as always, have a great weekend. Thanks.